Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances, elders, to share Prabhupada. Thank you all for joining His Holiness Candramauli Swami Maharaj's daily call. Today, we are going to continue the Srimad Bhagavatam series of first canto, 11th chapter, verse number 31. Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances, elders, to share Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Maharaj, for your time and association. So you can please take over, Maharaj.
Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Patyapatim Prokshagrinanuphangatam Vilokya Sanjatam Mano Mahotsavaha Tastur Arat Sahasasanasayat Sakam Vratar Vriddita Lochananayaha. The queens of Lord Krishna rejoice within their minds to see their husbands home after a long period abroad. The queens got up at once from their seats in meditation, and was socially customary. They covered their faces shyly and looked about coyly. So, as mentioned above, the Lord entered his home palaces occupied by 16,000 queens. First, I'll do Om Gyantam Mirandasya Ginajana Savakaya Chaksun Militam Yane Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Maum Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasnaya Bhutale Srimakti Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Pasyatya De Satarne Vanchakalpa Tarubhischa Kripa Sindhuve Pacha Patitanam Bhavane Bhyo Vaishnave Bhyo Namaho Namaha Jai Shri Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Bhakti Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Purport. As mentioned above, the Lord entered his home palaces occupied by 16,108 queens. This means that the Lord at once expanded himself as many plenary expansions as there were queens and palaces, and entered into each and every one of them simultaneously and separately. Here is another manifestation of the feature of his internal potency. He can expand himself as many forms of spiritual identity as he desires, even though he is one without a second. It is confirmed in the Shruti mantra that the Absolute is one, and yet he becomes many as soon as he desires. These manifold expressions of the Supreme Lord are manifested as plenary and separated portions. The separate portions are representatives of his energy, and the plenary portions are manifestations of his personality. As the personality of Godhead manifested himself in 16,000 plenary expansions and simultaneously entered each and every one of the palaces of the queens. This is called Vaibhava, or the transcendental potency of the Lord. And because he can do so, he is known as Yogeshwara. So here we're hearing about one of the features of the characteristics of the Lord's internal nature. And that is, he is one, Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam Ekubahunam Vidadati Kaman. But he is many, he can become many, although he is one. One is that there is one who expands himself into himself and becomes many. Therefore, the one doesn't become different than the many, but becomes a manifestation of the one. That's why people get confused to understand that God is only one, although they say, well, you worship your God and I worship my God. People misunderstand that actually there is one God. He has many names and he expands himself in many forms of himself. And these are characterized by different categories of his internal energy. This one particular one, which is his pastime potency, is called Vaibhava, Prakash. There's Vibhava, there's Vaibhava, Prakash, and there's one more Prakash. I can't remember what it's called. Vaibhava, Prakash, but these are different descriptions of the Lord's multifaceted nature as he manifests himself in different ways. And we also see that even the external energy is a manifestation of his energy also. It's one of the expansions of the Lord, and therefore it is also, in one sense, from the absolute principle of oneness, non-different than him. When you understand the transcendental nature a little bit of the Lord, we cannot understand it completely. We actually understand there is nothing that exists outside of the Lord. Everything exists within him through his energies, his different potencies. Rasya Shakti Vidahaya Suyate Swabhaviki Jnana Balak Kriyacha. This verse describes that everything that he does and everything that is in existence is all an expansions of him through his different energies. And when you understand the absolute nature of the principle, you understand that the nature or the energy and the energetic cannot be separated, just like you cannot separate the sun from the sunshine or the sunshine from the sun. Without the sun, there is no sunshine. Therefore, without the Lord, anything else in existence has no meaning at all, because it doesn't exist. It only exists because of the Lord's presence. Therefore, he manifests himself in different ways. And he can expand himself, as you see here, 16,108 queens. Some people might also think that, well, that's his limit. No, actually, but comments on that and says he can expand himself into 16 million, 16 billion. There's no number that limits the Lord in his expansion. When we get to understand a little bit about this, we can understand how wonderful the Lord is and how powerful he is. Although we cannot perceive that nature of his power, we can only become somewhat amazed to hear how he is everything at the same time localized. Continue. Ordinarily, a yogi or mystic living being is able to expand himself at utmost to tenfold expansions of his body. But the Lord can do so to the extent of many thousands or infinitely, as we mentioned, as he likes. Unbelievers become astonished to learn that Lord Krishna married more than 16,000 queens because they think the Lord of Krishna as one of them and measure the potency of the Lord by their own limited potency. So this is also a very important principle. People want to understand something beyond their ability, or beyond their intelligence, beyond their mind, senses, and imagination. They do a comparison based on what they understand they are, or what they understand they understand. And then they compare or try to measure the Lord or explain the Lord based on, and Prabhupada would call that frog philosophy. The frog sits in the well and he's there in his 10 feet well. His friend comes along and says, "My dear friend frog, you know, there's a tremendous, gigantic ocean out there, and it's much bigger than your well. And the frog will think, well, maybe it's 3 times bigger, maybe 10 times bigger. Okay, maybe 100 times bigger. But he can never understand because he's limited to his well-like existence. So similarly, the conditioned living entities can never understand God, although they try to, and they make comparisons, and they use their limited amounts of knowledge to do that. But it's also like the frog who cannot understand the ocean when he sits in his well. So we have to hear from the great souls who get the information directly from the Lord about the Lord and give it to us in the form of transcendental knowledge. Continue, one should know, therefore, that the Lord is never on the level of the living beings, who are expansions of his marginal potency. And one should never equalize the potent and the potency, although there's a very little difference of quality between the potency and the potent. Just like there is very little different quality between the sun and the sunshine, but still there is a qualitative difference. The queens were also expansions of his internal potency, and thus the potent and the potency are perpetually exchanging transcendental pleasures. So that's important part, because the Lord can only exchange transcendental pleasures with his devotees and not with the non-devotees. Non-devotees think they can have a relationship with the Lord, but they have a relationship with the Lord based on his energy and not him directly. Only those who are his devotees can have an actual loving exchange between the Lord and themselves. Continue. One should not therefore become astonished to learn that the Lord married so many wives. On the contrary, one should affirm that even if the Lord marries 16,000 million wives, he is not completely manifesting his unlimited and inexhaustible potency. So here we're learning more about his unlimited nature, which is beyond comprehension. He married only 16,000 wives and entered into each and every one of the different palaces just to impress in the history of the human beings on the surface of the Lord that the Lord is never equal to or less than any human being, however powerful that human being may be. No one, therefore, is equal or greater than the Lord. The Lord is always great in all respects. God is great, is the eternal truth. So we're getting a little understanding of his greatness here, like that. There was a story when Narada Muni came to see the Lord in Dwarka. He came into one of the palace, and Krishna was there with one queen, performing a particular activity. He was playing cards with one. He was playing chess with another. So in every palace that Narada went into, he saw the Lord with one of his queens, or with him and his queens and the children doing different things. And he was astonished to see the same Lord in different places doing different things. And the Narada got a little understanding of how great the Lord is. And it mentions that in the previous part of this purport, it mentions that the yogis can expand themselves into different bodies, but their expansion is exactly the same as the original. They can't be doing different things in each of the expansions. So that's another characteristic of the Lord, which is unique to the Lord and different from the quality of the conditioned souls. Continue. Therefore, as soon as the queens saw from a distance their husband was away from home for long periods due to the battle of Kurukshetra, they all rose from the slumber of meditation and prepared to receive their most beloved. According to Yajnavalkya's religious injunctions, A woman whose husband is away from home should not take part in any social functions, should not decorate her body, should not laugh, should not go to any relative's house in any circumstance. This is the vow of the ladies whose husbands are away from home. At the same time, it is also enjoined that a wife should never present herself before the husband in an unclean state. She must decorate herself with ornaments and good dress, and should always be present before the husband in a happy and joyous mood. The queens of Lord Krishna were all in meditation, thinking of the Lord's absence, and they were always meditating upon him. The Lord's devotees cannot live for a moment without meditating upon the Lord. And what to speak of the queens, who are all goddesses of fortune incarnated as queens in the pastimes of the Lord at Dwarka. They can never be separated from the Lord either by presence or by trance. So here, there's a little etiquette here that is mentioned about the relationship between husband and wife according to the ideal presentation of Vedic culture. Of course, we don't see that today because the whole Western scheme of relationships is based on trying to artificially present a sense of equality between the different levels or different types of living beings, especially in different types of relationships. But it's artificial. So in the sense of etiquette and behavior and showing loving relationships, a certain etiquette must be followed in order to preserve the quality of that relationships. This is a very controversial subject matter, to say the least, and it also can continue to be discussed for hours. So we won't go into that too much, but we're getting a little bit of the ideal here. And this is given by Yajnavalkya, one of the authorities on religious injunctions. Now it continues to say, the gopis at Vrindavan could not forget the Lord when the Lord was away in the forest cowherding. I was just reading in another section of the Bhagavatam that the separation from the residents, the feelings of separation that the residents of Vrindavan had when Krishna left Vrindavan was a lifetime shock for all of them. And then Prabhupada goes on to say, and what to speak of Srimati Radharani, we cannot even describe her feelings of separation. It's beyond expression, as Prabhupada writes. So this is the love that his internal associates, his eternal associates have for the Lord, especially those who are residents of Sri Vrindavan. They can never forget the Lord in any circumstance. When the Lord boy, Krishna, was absent from the village, the gopis at home used to worry about him traversing the rough ground with his soft lotus feet. But thinking thus, they were sometimes overwhelmed in trance and mortified in heart. Such is the condition of the pure associates of the Lord. They always in trance, and so the queens also were in trance during the absence of the Lord. Presently, we have seen the Lord from a distance. They at once gave all their engagements, including the vows of women as being described above. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, there was a regular psychological reaction on the occasion. First of all, rising from their seats, although they wanted to see their husband, they were deferred because of feminine shyness. But due to strong ecstasy, they overcame the state of weakness and became caught up with the idea of embracing the Lord. And this thought factually made them unconscious of the surrounding environment. The prime state of ecstasy annihilated all other formalities and social conventions. and thus they escape all stumbling blocks on the path of meeting the Lord. That is the perfect stage of meeting the Lord of the soul, Sri Krishna. So what is being explained here is the quality of relationship in separation from Krishna. That there is no such thing as separation from the Lord, but in the appearance of separation, there is different expressions of that feeling. And here are some of them: is they lose all consciousness of the surrounding environment, all the formalities and social conventions. In meeting the Lord, they see as simply a stumbling block. So this is the mood of separation. And there is two aspects to one's loving relationship with the Lord. One is called Vipalamba Bhav, and the other one called Sambhog. Sambhog means to meet the Lord, and the Vipalamba is a mood of love expressed. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was ideal in expressing that loving mood when he spoke his Shikshastika prayers. Ayinandad, no, Yugaitam Nimeshena, Chakshusha Pravishayitam, Shunyaitam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahena Me. This verse describes that a devotee in that mood of loving the Lord feels every moment of separation from the Lord like 12 years or more. In other words, time practically stops. And in that stopping, that consciousness of the slowness of time, one is suffering the separation from the Lord. But that suffering is another form of enjoyment, because in the intensity of that separation, within the heart of that devotee, they are feeling the presence of the Lord, because the Lord is responding to them through the heart. Although he may not be personally present, he is with them in their heart. And that stage of ecstasy that they experience in that separation is the highest form of spiritual love the devotee can experience. It's described in different ways, but it's described as contrary feelings that come upon the soul simultaneously. It's like being pulled in two directions at the same time, to use an analogy. So what is that pulling? That you want to be with the Lord, but at the same time, you're feeling the presence of the Lord in the mood of separation. So both of these things appear to be contrary, but they amalgamate themselves in the mood of love. And when that mood of love is there, the devotee feels great ecstasy in that loving separated mood, that they still want to be with the Lord, but still feeling a sense of happiness in their heart because of the separation. To try to describe that feeling is practically impossible. The acharyas do speak about it in different ways, but it is the prime example of pure love. And then that when the devotee hankers for the presence of the Lord in that mood of separation, and the Lord does come, then the ecstasy reaches such a height that it becomes almost impossible to maintain it becomes impossible to maintain one's consciousness, and one loses consciousness. It becomes like that. There's one example where Radharani is with Krishna, and they're together, and there's a little bumblebee flying around. And we know there's a name for Krishna called Madhava. But a bee is also sometimes referred to as Madhava. So one of Krishna's cowherd friends, Madhamangal, he came and he saw the situation, so he wanted to help. So he chased the bee away. And then he said to Radharani, Madhav is gone, referring to the bee. But when Srimati Radharani heard that, she was thinking, oh my God, Krishna is gone. He's not here anymore. Although Krishna was right next to her. So this is an example of her loving a relationship. And even she thinks that Krishna is not there. Even if he is there, she feels that mood of separation. Therefore, no one can understand Radharani's love for Krishna. It's not possible. Not even Krishna can understand it. It's that difficult. That's why he becomes Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to understand her love for him in his position of him, in her position towards her love for him. So this is the mystery of Lord Chaitanya's appearance in this world. Can never be described. So here's a beautiful pastime that's being played out here of the Lord and how he interacts with his devotees in different ways, by meeting, by creating separation, by manifesting the principle of meeting, and by expanding himself in so many aspects of himself, simply to give pleasure to his devotees. As Prabhupada writes, the Lord loves to give pleasure to his devotees. He goes out of his way to use a euphemism to give pleasure to his devotees. Okay, so we'll stop there.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj, for such a wonderful class, and you touched on many aspects of this purport. Thank you so much. It was very informative, and also, Maharaj, I just want to know about the next other mode of separation. You mentioned about Vipralambha, and can you mention the other one too? I forgot. I couldn't hear properly.
The other mood is the mood of meeting. That's called Sambhog.
Sambhog, okay.
Yeah, if you, in the Chaitanya Shikshastakam, verse number 7, which we recited,
Yes.
Yugatam Nimeshena Chakshusha Pravashaitam Shunyaitam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahiname. That is an expression by Lord Chaitanya in the mood of separation. The next verse, Aslishyava Pinaratam Punastumam Adarshanam Marmahatam Karo Tuva Yatatatava Vidadatu Mampato Mat Pranam Nastu Sevana Paraha. That is the mood of meeting the Lord.
Yes, good one. Thank you. Thank you so much. Dear devotees, I guess you have a lot of questions today. Please unmute yourself or raise your hands and or type in the chat box. And please turn on your cameras if possible. That's very nice. Yes, Raj Prabhu, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, can you explain to me? I was a bit confused. Can you explain what exactly is a plenary portion and a separated portion?
That's described in a discussion between Lord Chaitanya and Sanatana Goswami in the 20th chapter of Madhya Lila, where all of the different aspects of the Lord's manifested potencies are described in detail along with the different titles given. So, if you also, in the 3rd chapter of the 1st canto, describes that there are plenary portions and portions of a plenary portion. So these are different manifestations of the Godhead. So just like there are different, there's 6 different types of incarnations of the Lord. There's Leela avatars, Purushottam avatars, Purusha, Leela avatars, Purusha avatars, Guna avatars, Shaktavesh avatars, Let me see, that's 4. And there is also, I can't think of the other 2, but there are 6 categories of expansions or incarnations, and all of them comprise the different plenary portions and portions of the different plenary portions. So some are direct. For instance, when Krishna comes, it's not an incarnation, that's a manifestation of himself. When he comes as, and you can read it, it's, I can explain a little bit, but if you read it, it tells you what are the different categories and what are the different incarnations within the categories. That's mentioned in Madhya Lila, chapter 20, Candramauli Swami, hearing from Lord Chaitanya. You have the Vishnu manifestations, you have the Shaktavesh manifestations, you have the manifestations for the unfolding of the creation, the Mahatat, what is it? Mahavishnu and Garbhadakshay Vishnu, Shirodakshay Vishnu. So it's quite diverse and quite intricate, the different manifestations. But the categorization is for purpose, usually some for function, some for lila, some for a combination of both. Like by Baba Prakash and Baba Prakash, I think one Balaram is a different manifestation of Krishna. He fits into a certain category. The living entities are called Vibhanamsa, and then the plenary port or the godlike portions are called Swamsa, Vibhanamsa. So there's so many categories and categories within the categories. Okay. There's mono avatars too. That's described nicely in the 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the different manus that appear. They're also expansions. They're more like the plenary portions of the portions. And they're not so much directly connected with the Lord, but through a different categorization of separation. So yeah, I can't really describe it in detail. You have to read about it. That's just the way it is. But that chapter is complete. Madhya Lila chapter 20, read it and you'll get everything you need.
Okay, thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Devotees, any questions? Yes, Mataji, please go ahead.
Thank you. Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Parampara. Thank you for describing about the avatars, the different expansions of the Lord, and how the Jiva entity is the only devotees can connect with the Lord and have a relationship with the Lord. So right now, we are separated from the Lord, but we don't feel so much separation as those who are actually feeling separations feel. Why do we not feel so much separation from the Lord?
Because you're still trying to enjoy the material energy, that's why. Well, we might also respond by saying that because of our being away from the Lord for so long, we don't know enough about the Lord to feel separation from the Lord. Because of our separation is so long term, we forgot what it's like to be separated from the Lord. But that comes by way of one's devotional practice. There are certain stages of development where a devotee will start feeling that separation. And then there is a certain manifestation that develops. The devotee will start to feel lost, unhappy, regretful that they left the Lord. If you get these feelings, that means you're making progress. It means you're starting to come back. And they come by way of our sadhana. Or they may even come by way of an experience in life that reminds us of our separation from the Lord. Sometimes when we go see the deity in the temple, we also feel that. So it may manifest at different times and in different ways, but the essence is because of our long-term separation from the Lord, that material covering allows us to forget what it's like to be with the Lord. And therefore, we don't feel so much separation.
How can we increase this feeling of genuine separation and accelerate our bhakti in that direction?
As we detach ourselves more from material activities or material desires, and then we make the Lord our sole source of existence. We will not eat anything that is not offered to the Lord. We will not speak anything that's not related to the Lord. We will not go any place that's not related to our relationship with the Lord. We will not associate with anyone who is not connected, who's not a devotee of the Lord. We manifest these desires in the way that we focus everything we do around the Lord. Everything we do, everything we say. Every place we go.
Mataji, any more comments on this, Mataji?
I was just thinking about how I had to attend a wedding, which was not, Krishna conscious wedding, and what a torture it was. Just go through the motions and go through all those things and miss, the temple routine and miss the devotee. I mean, just even the simplest things that we take for granted, I couldn't do. And how difficult that was, that I vowed never again.
The fact that you were feeling difficulty in that is good. No, I mean, try to understand what I'm saying. The fact that you were feeling difficulty in that shows that you were not wanting to be there, or it was awkward because it was something outside of devotional life. So that's a good sign. If you were happy in that and enjoying that, and then you would be really in trouble. So you actually got some mercy.
Yes, Maharaj, I want to little bit comment. Even I was thinking the same question about separation. When we don't know that once we go to the temple and see the deities, then only myself especially, I realized that, oh, I missed the association, or I missed the darshan of the deities, or I missed the temple atmosphere. So I feel like, oh, I wish I could have come earlier, or more to the temple, like that. I feel, Maharaj. So yeah,
That's good. We want that.
Yeah, I don't feel, maybe daily activities cover that feeling, but once we go to the temple, I feel like that, Maharaj. So,
Yeah, and that shows that your attraction for the Lord is becoming stronger.
yeah,
You're losing your attraction for other things.
yes, Maharaj. Yeah,
That's good.
thank you.
That's good.
Thank you. Ileana Mataji, you want to go ahead with your question?
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to you, Guru Maharaj, all glories to devotees. I have two questions. Allora, the queens were all goodness of fortune. Okay. The feeling of separation from Krishna is the same by Gopi. And the second question is, is it okay say that Krishna, through his plenary expansion, reciprocates with himself?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
The first question is the intensity of separation between the queens and the gopis the same? No.
No.
Much more intense. Much more intense. And when Krishna was in Mathura, when Krishna was in Vrindavan, I'm sorry, when Krishna was in Dwarka,
Dwarka.
when Krishna was in Dwarka, the queens were noticing how Krishna was not with them many times. He was in Vrindavan in his mind. He was chanting the names Radhe, Radhe, Yasoda, Yasoda, thinking about Vrindavan. He would speak in his sleep about Vrindavan. And then they all started to wonder, what is that attraction that Krishna has for Vrindavan? That he's here with us, but he's not really as much with us as he is with Vrindavan. So that's the intensity of love that Krishna exchanged with the residents of Vrindavan. And that is the whole story of Rath Yatra. Rath Yatra is based on that pastime. Krishna returning to Vrindavan after being away from Vrindavan. And that is the mood of Rath, which is Krishna again coming back to Vrindavan to experience and to satisfy the residents of Vrindavan, which is the highest and most complete expression of loving relationship between Krishna and his parts and parcels. That's why they say Dwarka is perfect, Mathura is more perfect, and Vrindavan is most perfect.
Thank you very much.
And the second question is Krishna having a relationship with himself? In his,
Yes.
Well,
Through the queens.
through the queens. This is a very interesting question because everything is him anyway. So if you want to take it from the highest platform of understanding, everything is him, manifested in different aspects of himself for the sake of loving exchange. Therefore, the principle of two is simply there for the exchange of love, that's all. But ultimately, everything is one. Everything is Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
But
Thank you.
there's an eternal separation between Krishna and his energies for the sake of loving exchange. And it's us.
Hare Krishna.
Well, thank you. Interesting questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Namrata Mataji, you go ahead, please.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Being desirous, not materially but spiritually, being spiritually desirous is too desirous is a good sign or not, Guru Maharaj?
Desire less, you're saying?
Desirous, spiritually too desirous.
Well, you can't be free from desire. It's not possible. And then you're not alive, you're dead. But you can't be dead because you are eternal. So desire accompanies the living entity in their existence. You either desire Krishna or you desire something else.
Then what is the difference, Guru Maharaj, between the stage when we surrender and accept whatever Krishna or whatever our desires are like merged into what Krishna wishes for us, and then being desireless materially but still being desirous spiritually?
Yeah, correct. That's correct. Whatever Krishna wants, well, Krishna wants our love. How you express that love, that's up to you. He gives you a choice in that expression, and he reciprocates according to that expression. But there's a certain characteristic about your existence which is unique to yourself. So when you come to that stage of realization, then you express that love according to who you actually are. And then Krishna reciprocates with that. So we have the rasas, the different moods of expressions. But before we actually come to that stage of realization, we're offering our devotion in the form of just regular service. So we're serving one way, we're serving another way. And when we become more advanced, then we want to serve in a specific way because it's in tune with our nature. And that's Raganuga Bhakti, or spontaneous loving attraction for the Lord, which is revealed on the more developed stages of devotional practice. We have to understand one thing, and this has to be clear. Everyone has a natural, spontaneous love for God. It's natural, spontaneous, it's never lost, it's only forgotten. Rules, regulations, restrictions, activities, all of these are there to help us to understand that relationship and then practice it. So when we're practicing devotional service at the beginning, we're getting attached to the service. When we're developing, when we become more developed in our practice, we're becoming attached to Krishna, not so much the service. The beginning is we're connected to Krishna through the service, and as we develop it, we start to become more connected to Krishna, and the service becomes the way of connection. That's all. Is that okay?
Yes, Guru Maharaj. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hari.
Maharaj, I have a question, like on the basis of this answer. Service attitude is natural by like swabhava, or it should be cultivated, like how it will become?
Service attitude or specific?
Yeah.
specific.
General service attitude, Maharaj, like serving others generally, like, is it like by nature one will have, or it
Yeah.
should be cultivated?
We're doing it every day. We serve in the material world. We're serving our friends, family members, society in general. We're serving. We're always. No one can stop the service attitude. It's just it's indigenous, or you might say innate in the living entity's existence.
Mm,
So when you cultivate that attitude towards Krishna, that is bhakti.
yeah.
When you perform it towards the material energy, that's karma.
Mm. Because I see some individuals, like, they don't like to serve, or they don't want to serve, or they just simply be there, and if any service comes towards them also, they will not be very happy. So that's what I was thinking, like, why they don't have this type of attitude, like service, a little bit of service attitude they don't have. So I'll be thinking, so.
Yeah, but the fact is they're always serving anyway.
Yeah.
They can't get away from that. They may not like the way to serve that type of service.
Mm.
Yeah, but the non-devotees don't want to serve Krishna because they think it's a waste of time. They can't make money. They can't enjoy life. They think it's a waste of time. So if you offer them service to Krishna, they won't do it. Or if they do it, they'll finish it up fast and go back to their enjoying service,
Mm.
enjoying the material energy, which is trying to taste the inside of a honey bottle by licking the outside.
Yes, ma'am.
Material activity.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people want to serve according to where they think they're going to enjoy. They can't see or understand, or even if you explain them the happiness you get by serving the Lord, they can't understand it.
Yes, Maharaj. Yeah. Thank you so much. And here Aarti Mataji is asking on the chat, please accept my humble obeisances, all goes to Srila Prabhupada. Is it wrong to be attached to a service?
No, it's not wrong to be attached to your service. You want to be attached to your service because your service is something you can offer to Krishna. The only downside is that if you're asked to serve in another way by, say, some superior or someone, then you say, well, I can't serve in that way because I want to serve in this way. Then that's where the attachment can be a stumbling block.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sri
Yeah,
Mataji, Maharaj, you have time. Mataji raised her hand.
we're getting to the hour here, so is there any other questions?
Yeah, Sri Devi Mataji raised her hand. So
Anyone else besides that?
I don't see any, Maharaj.
Oh, okay, then Sri Devi, you're on.
Thank you, Maharaj, for your mercy. Maharaj, you said at this point that even if you explain the happiness that comes from serving the Lord, they cannot understand. So is it that only when they receive the dust of the lotus feet of the pure devotee, then their good fortune opens up and then there is a chance for their devotional life to begin?
Srimati, you can continue the class because Sri Devi just opened up a whole new subject matter. Therefore, you can continue with your discussion because she has just hit on an essential point of how life works. So first of all, chant Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya and then begin. But to be right to the point, yes, you're 100% correct. Nothing can be said aside from that.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you for your mercy to all of us. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Even when I disagree with you, you still say the same thing?
I'm happy to swallow all the bitter pills you give me, Guru Maharaj. They only make me better.
Okay, just check your medicine cabinet. There's some unused pills that are still there.
I guess I need a refill now.
There's all different colored pills. They got the yellow ones, the green ones, the blue ones, and the white ones. But the real medicine is chanting the holy name of the Lord. And that is the super pill.
Namrata Mataji.
Okay, real quick. I have to go. But really quick.
Yes, Guru Maharaj, very quick. Guru Maharaj, when I'm doing this service, it sometimes bothers me that when you give a service and when I suggest something, so is it right to suggest spiritual master, or I should just simply
No.
take the information?
If you think that you can perform some service that would be beneficial, that's not been given, yes, you can express that. In fact, that's encouraged.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Yeah, that's encouraged. Okay, just before we end,
Yes.
so tomorrow I won't be doing the class with Harrisburg, but I'll be doing it on Friday.
Yes, Maharaj. Anasuya Mataji messaged me. Yeah, she messaged me. Guru Maharaj.
Yeah, we'll make that to all the devotees. Harrisburg, it's a different Zoom.
Yes, Maharaj. I'll share the link. Yes, Guru Maharaj.
And that's Friday instead, and tomorrow there'll be no class because of my travels.
Okay, Guru Maharaj. Yeah. Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much for your time. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. His Holiness Chandramauli Swami Maharaj ki jai. Thank you. Thank you, devotees.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Guru Maharaj ki jai.
Jai.
Jai. Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.